Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is May 6th, 2024. That's more than 4 years, 2 months, and a lot of days of coming together every single day from all over the world to say good morning to each other, to learn Torah, to face the world as it is, and to know that our obligation is to lift it just 1 inch higher, all of us together. It's broadcast 1045. Thank you, Penny, for reminding us. And it is day 213 since October 7th. It is also Yom HaShoah. There's a lot going on today. The most important thing we can do is to say good morning to each other. So good morning to Penny and my Ariel. Hi, beautiful girl. And Alice, it's good to see you. Arlene, good morning. Marilyn, Sunday, Anna, Rose, Kim. Kim, you just left the hotel. Just look back for 1 second and help all of us see what you see. Minna and Amy, Jacqueline and Lydia, good morning. Hi, Rose. I think I missed a few people at the beginning. Rosa and Julianne, Hannah and Sandy. Hi, Marcia. Hi, Jerry. Good to see you. Fabrice, you're back in Paris. Welcome back. Debbie, good to see you. Marilyn and Amy, Boker Tov. Hi, Minna. Lisa and Cecile, Jonathan and Dale, Boker Tov. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Natalie. All right, let's take a breath, everyone. Hi, Anya. I'm not going to use the guitar today. There are going to be a number of ways that we mark today as Yom HaShoah. It's not a day that I'm going to pick up my guitar. I'm going to do things differently, defiantly and with fire and all of that. But I'm going to leave behind a little bit of the music. Today is a complicated day. It's a day of grief and, yes, resilience. But we mark today as different. And one of the ways is we'll say the blessing. And I'll leave the guitar until tomorrow. Here we go. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So, friends, it's Yom HaShoah, and it's a complicated thing. The history of Yom HaShoah is worth knowing. When the chief rabbinate of the newly created state of Israel tried to figure out how would we mark Yom HaShoah, what would that even mean? What day should it be on the calendar? One of the obvious choices was to select Tisha B'Av, the ninth day of Av, and it would have been one of many terrible days in Jewish history, just as Yom HaShoah, the way we have it today, points to terrible darkness and devastation and pain. So too do many days that are all lumped together on Tisha B'Av during the summer. It's not a commonly observed holiday because many people have different schedules. But if you've ever been to Jewish summer camp, you know that we sit on the floor. We don't learn Torah. The way we pray is without music. But the rabbis of the early state of Israel believed that the Shoah, the Holocaust, defies all the other models. It's a different kind of pain. And in Israel, the name for Yom HaShoah is Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura, the day of Holocaust and heroism. And among the ways that visually you can imagine this, the shift in our mentality was created by an artist whose last name was Rappaport. There is a very big bronze relief right outside of the Warsaw Ghetto, which has two sides. On one side is the image from the Arch of Titus, where after sacking Jerusalem, which was the destruction of the Second Temple, the Jews were driven into exile, carrying our sacred relics from the temple into Rome. That's one side. Backs are bowed, walking in a defeated way. When you walk around the other side in Warsaw, you see an image of Mordechai and Alevich, the leader of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, bare-chested, a Molotov cocktail and a rifle in his hands, and other Jews in positions of fighting. And the reason why Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura today was chosen was because it was meant to signify not what was done to us, but how we fought back. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising is what made this day today. why Yom HaShoah was chosen. And interestingly enough, the uprising began on the first night of Passover. And so the rabbis had to make a compromise, as sometimes rabbis do. It wouldn't be Tisha B'Av. Doesn't fit that model. We are not going to be a defeated people. That's not the identity that we will claim for ourselves. We will mark the Shoah on a day of fighting back. And it is also the case that um, we wouldn't mark Yom HaShoah on Pesach, the holiday of our liberation. What we will do is we'll push it just a little bit and make it the week after Pesach. So here we are today. What does Yom HaShoah look like today? Part of this, friends, is that I am both here in New York at UJA. We're about to mark Yom HaShoah as a staff in a few minutes. And I'm also right now in Warsaw, where my precious wife, Neshama, and two of our children have been participating in March of the Living, bringing music, bearing testimony. And I am here and I am there. I'm also here and I am there in that October 7th has changed the way I exist. And has it changed it in essential ways? I lived for a long time in a bubble protected from the ravages of what the Shoah represented and represents. And Israel had become a place that felt like the fulfillment of the promise, the never again. And in so many ways, that is what Israel is. And yet, friends, we live in so many different realities all at the same time. And what I want to do is amplify that we are still blessed to hear from survivors who are very old and very committed. Right now in New York, under UJA's care, there are 13,000 living Holocaust survivors. 60% of them live under poverty and its conditions, and we are obligated by sacred oath to take care of them. And so I am in all of these places, and so are you. So are you. What does never again mean when October 7th was just 7 months ago? What does it mean when there's an 80-year-old Holocaust survivor who's being held hostage by Hamas? What does it mean when children of survivors are fighting for their loved ones? Again, what does it mean? What does any of this mean? There is a video from Yom HaShoah in 2018, a beautiful, beautiful video created by Kululam, a wonderful musical creative group that brought together survivors and their descendants to sing Ofra Chaza's famous song, Chai, I am alive. What I have to make sure that I don't do is lose any of my life force that our ancestors could only have dreamt of. Here we are, able to make such a difference for so many in our world, to stand up for Jewish dignity and to stand up for justice for all. It is complicated, friends. All of this is complicated. And Natalie, of course, Natalie writes, please remember the World War II veterans who helped to free them. Yes, of course. Of course. What's interesting, by the way, is that the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which was created by the UN, is based on the day that Auschwitz was liberated, which means something that was done for the Jews. But what Yom HaShoah does is it marks the day that the Jews fought back. And it's important to recognize the difference between those two things. Yes, of course, with gratitude, actually, to the Allies, which included the Soviet Union at the time, who liberated Auschwitz, and to the American soldiers, who include my grandfather of blessed memory, Henry Creditor, who fought in the army in World War II. We have so much to be grateful for, Today is a day to recognize also what we lost. I want to share um, a little bit of writing that has been very striking to me. There is a book that sometimes you go to libraries and they discard books. And so I was passing by a library and um, they were discarding this book by Elie Wiesel, A Jew Today, literally 50 years ago. 50 years ago. And you can tell even by the sound of the crinkling of the page. It is a hard book to read. These are pages from Elie Wiesel's diary that were published 50 years ago this year. And I want to read just an excerpt because it's not only what we lost, it's the fragility of this world we think we've gained. And we have to rededicate ourselves to being part of building this world faster than anyone can take it down. So let me begin just reading a little bit of Elie Wiesel, and then we'll wish us a good day. A good day. Why I am afraid, Elie Wiesel. Perhaps it would be best not to admit it publicly. I feel threatened. I am afraid. For the first time in many years, I fear the nightmare may be starting all over again. Perhaps it never ended. We may have lived, since the liberation, a period between parentheses, and now they are closed again. Oh yes, so naive was I that I thought, especially during the early post-war years, that Jews would never again be slandered, isolated, handed over to the enemy. Anti-Semitism, I thought, had died under a sky of ashes somewhere in Poland. We had nothing more to fear. The world would never again be insensitive to our anguish. I was convinced that, paradoxically, people of today and people of tomorrow would be protected by the terrifying mystery of the concentration camp phenomenon. I was wrong. What happened could happen again. I may be exaggerating, I may be too sensitive. After all, I do belong to a traumatized generation. We have learned to believe threats more than promises. The disquieting signs are proliferating. The sickening spectacle of an enthralled International Assembly celebrating a spokesman for terror. The speeches, the votes against Israel, the dramatic loneliness of this universal people. One must be blind not to recognize it. Hate of the Jew has once more become fashionable. 1974. So I want to say a few things. Elie Wiesel modeled an incomparable heroism. Incomparable, except that survivors today still tell the story. I sat with Reena Quint, a survivor in Jerusalem, survivor of the Shoah, who spoke with power and passion and eloquence and energy. I spoke with her the beginning of November this past year, sitting with her with a group of rabbis that UJA sent to hear testimony from her, and she used the language of new survivors of Be'eri, Kfar Aza, of countless communities. We will do the work it takes, friends. We will do the work it takes, just like our survivors always have. We will do the work that it takes, so that our children will tell this story too. They will live. They will know. They will remember. We are called, friends, by our ancestors to be good ancestors ourselves to our descendants. That means that we fight for our children. That means that we fight for our home. And yes, we will fight for all people, but we will fight for our people. I can't even say the number 6 million, friends. How can we? I can't say the number 1,200. I can't. And I'm not comparing them. But we have a history that is ongoing. 50 years ago, Elie Wiesel wrote these words. I look at my students and I tremble for their future. I see myself at their age on a continent in ruins, and I do not know what to tell them. I should like to be able to convince them that in spite of the official slogans and in spite of appearances, our people has friends and allies. I should like to be able to tell them that in spite of the accumulated disappointments and betrayals, they must maintain their faith in people, that in spite of everything, there are reasons for hope. But I have never lied to them, and I shall not start now. And yet, despair is not a solution. I know that well. I remember. Friends, you and I have a job to make sure that memory is channeled through our deeds, that it fuels our life, that we do not take Jewish existence for granted, that we do not lose our humanity while we fight monsters, that we do not act in naive ways, and that we provide our children all the strength they need. All the strength they need. That is what you and I have to do. We have to remember. This week's Torah portion is Kedoshim. We're called in this portion to live holy lives, be holy. But we also call all those who died, who were murdered in the Shoah, Kedoshim. We say that they died al Kiddush Hashem, for the sanctity of God's name. There are fewer survivors now than there were before. So I hear this week's Torah portion thundering in my ears. Kedoshim Tihiyu. You be the Kedoshim. You and I will be the ones who carry this forward, who bear testimony, who remember. So we remember. We fight for our children to come home, for our grandparents to come home. We fight for our students on campuses. We not just pray, we fight. We fight because we remember. So friends, sing with me. Sing about hope. Pray these words of hope. Call to our family members in darkness right now. Promise our ancestors that we will be good ancestors too. Kolon baleva penima nefesh Yehudi homia ulefate mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia Olo avda tikvateinu, hatikva bat shnot alpayim, liot am choshi be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim, liot am choshi Be'artzeinu, Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. Bless you, friends. Never again. Bring them home now. Am Yisrael Chai. See you tomorrow.